Hi, Stephen. Hi, Steve. Two Stevens. I'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. I think looks like we're just waiting for Becky.
She had to run out of the room.
Oh, okay. Did you say when she was coming back, Steve? Or whoever?
In a moment, I think, quickly,
Okay.
shortly.
She said a couple of hours. I'd say, well, maybe we should go ahead and get started. There she is.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was someone at the door.
That's okay.
Hello, everyone. Have you gone around and introduced yourselves to each other?
Nope.
No.
I was thinking that would be wonderful since it's the first time you're all together.
So I'm not on the building committee, but I'm Rita Farrell. I'm chair of the select board, and I was really kind of instigated the formation of this new committee.
I'm Stephen.
I'm Becky. Oh, sorry.
I'm Stephen Dalmas. I live in Lake Wyola. We bought a camp in 2006, 2017, 18. Had the camp torn down and a permanent residence built. 2019, moved up here permanently. I have a professional degree in architecture, and for 40 years, I practiced as a home and building inspector in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm now retired.
Hi, I'm Frank McGinn. I've been
Want
on
to
the
tell
building,
us? Yeah, a little background.
and I've been on the building committee for 3 years now, or I had been on the old building committee for 3 years. I spent 32 years in the building materials industry selling masonry and drywall products, working in Providence, Rhode Island and Boston, Massachusetts. I've worked with architects, engineers, and all levels, from small houses to large high rises in my career.
Wow.
I'm Jeff Quackenbush, retired 3 years ago, worked 25 years or 24 years at UMass, design and construction management, and then 20 years before that is normal architecture practice. And I said, retired 3 years ago, and I was in the original building committee with Jim DeLeva 25 years ago.
Wow.
So it means I'm an old goat.
I'm Anna Cook. I'm a general contractor in Amherst. I co-own Integrity Development and Construction. I have been there, I think this past spring was my 20th year there. We do mostly residential renovation, remodeling, new construction. We do some commercial, none of the like high rises at UMass, but 3-story mixed use buildings and light commercial work.
Wonderful. Well, this is a remarkable group of people. Steve,
didn't let
you have a
Steve-
chance.
yeah.
Where's Steve?
He was there.
Steve Sullivan, I think I've been on this committee for 5 years now.
On the old committee,
The old
or the original.
And I work for the highway department and I'm on the school committee.
and the Regional School Committee and Capital Planning.
Everybody knows Becky, our town administrator.
Mhm.
Becky, I think the next thing on the agenda was just to go through the building committee charge.
Yes.
So I thought maybe I just give a very, most of you have heard this before, but just a very brief overview of kind of how we got here to creating a new building committee. So Shutesbury's had a building committee for, oh gosh, Jeff, what did you say? You were on it 25 years ago, for a long time. And I believe it was originally established by town meeting vote in 1988. And at that time, it was, I think, 2, maybe 3 sentences at the most that said, we're going to have a building committee and it's going to be at least 3 people. And it was kind of the sum total of it was very minimal. And, you know, as a result, I think over time, the building committee as the composition of the committee changed. Sort of how things were approached were changed. Personalities ended up playing kind of more of a role in sort of how things worked on the committee. And it became apparent to me as we started, you know, thinking about a very expensive investment, big new investment for the town in the town library. And as we looked at all of these issues that have been ongoing around the elementary school, which is now in that phase of it's however many years old, you know, 35 years old, when we did the addition, that, you know, we have some very valuable buildings and very costly potential expenses, and that it was really a good time to sort of step back, think about the building committee's functions in a much more, in a better defined way. So the select board talked this through. We drafted a bylaw that went to town meeting, and it essentially reorganized and, you know, created a framework for a new committee, ranging everything, talking about its role to membership, term, and so forth. And, you know, particular interest was setting for me anyway, was setting forth, you know, a clear path for how we deal for what the building committee is responsible for, and outlining that, and then talking about capital projects. When does the building committee, when is it involved or when isn't it involved? And then sort of on an ongoing basis, what the kind of what the responsibilities are. And so that's all detailed. I don't know that I need to go through that tonight, because I think everybody probably has a copy of this, but I'll make sure that you all have the actual bylaw that was passed. You know, for, again, what I think the select board is really interested in is having guidance of a really qualified group of people such as yourselves to help us think through both renovations, kind of work that needs to be done on our buildings, and then, you know, also be looking at kind of ongoing maintenance issues. The building committee has always had a very small budget, $10,000, and Becky can speak to sort of how that has been, or even Steve or Frank, how that has been used in the past. So there's not, you know, a lot of money there, but we really need to rely upon the building committee to help guide the select board and the town administrator and department heads about what should be done regarding buildings. So we have the elementary school, which is the biggest. We have fire station, DPW, town hall, old town hall, and then there are a couple of small other buildings that are more kind of historic used. I think the West Schoolhouse, and I can't remember if there's anything else, Becky. But we have aging buildings, and we need to be paying attention to that. So, you know, at the select board, we talked about the need for doing some sort of assessment. Everything has been sort of by a little bit by the seat of our pants, you know, is there kind of an emergency has come up, then suddenly everybody's scrambling and trying to figure out what do we, you know, what should we be doing? What, you know, what should the town be doing? And it would be really wonderful to have a more thoughtful approach where we do some sort of, you know, an assessment. I know in the housing business, which I was in for many years on multifamily projects, we did a, you know, capital needs assessment, and you always had, you operated with a capital needs assessment. So you could do some planning and understand, you know, in 5 years, we're going to need to do roof replacement or, you know, other systems replacement. And we haven't really had that. We've had just emergencies and then disagreements about what needs to be done, either through outside, you know, using an outside expert, or if this committee chooses to do it on its own. What I would like to see is having some sort of a comprehensive assessment of, you know, where our buildings are, you know, what's the useful life of the roof on the fire station? What year do we think, you know, it's going to need replacement? If it's at 28 years, so, you know, we're looking at next year, those kinds of things. So we can be more thoughtful about planning some significant expenses rather than, oh, suddenly we have a leak and now we have to go get the money. And so that's one of the things that's a kind of longer range. And then more immediately, you know, we have projects, a lot of stuff going on at the school right now that really needs some eyes on it. And I know Jeff has, you know, already been doing some of that, Steve certainly, and Frank kind of in his, you know, the role on the building committee. But there's some things I think, Becky, you're going to bring forth just to have the building committee consider. We have to do, probably have heard about, you know, roof replacement there. So, so there'll be those kind of immediate issues. I don't think there's not a long list of those right now. So there's kind of an opportunity, I think, to think through putting together some sort of a comprehensive building assessment. And there was some movement towards that, I think, before the dissolution of the other building committee, but it was not a you know, a full-blown assessment. And I, for one, you know, if we think we need outside expertise, we could, you know, we could find some money to do that. But I think that's up to this group to say, do you all feel comfortable doing that sort of assessment? So I'm happy to take questions if you have any, or you can just kind of move right into the rest of the agenda.
We have a list of all the buildings, structures that the town owns. Anybody have it?
It's a short list. I mean, we have it listed in different places.
Put it together?
Yeah, there are 6 main buildings. One of them's not used except for storage. That's the old town hall. And then we have, you know, there's some additional buildings that we have that need to be taken care of that are historic, such as the schoolhouse on the corner of Levitt Road and West Pelham. The building committee did do a project to minor carpentry and painting about 7 or 8 years ago. Then we have the little house at the cemetery that was painted about 10 years ago and rebuilt. It was totally taken down to the beams and rebuilt. And then we have a little, we have at the dam, on top of the dam, there's a dam house that has gotten repainted a few times and minor repairs to that. And so the major buildings, to finish the question, Jeff, are the little library, the school, the town hall, highway department, and fire department are our main buildings that we try to attend to projects at and have done repainting jobs and window replacements and a variety of things over the last 13 years that I've been involved.
There's this old school at the top of the hill on Baker Road. Is that,
That's privately owned.
that's private? Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's owned by Sirius, if I'm not mistaken.
yes,
Sirius Community.
yeah.
Okay.
And they did come forward and request a CPA funding about 10, I don't know how long ago. And as a private building, it ended up not getting supported.
Okay.
Getting back to Rita's sort of question about being able to do our own assessment, I would like to think with all of our years of experience, this is something that we could certainly do. You know, as a home inspector, having a long tenure, 40 years, I mean, I learned a lot about materials and how they aged. And, there are certain things in the literature that you could read, but then seeing certain things for 40 years, I would often change my sense of, how those things were aging. And, I would think that we could figure out what kind of information we want in an assessment. For instance, a roof, what kind of material? What's a normal life? What is its life, but what is its condition? And then, are there any minor maintenance needs? For instance, with roofs, the vent collars, the plumbing vent collars have a neoprene gasket, and those, and this is all going to Maryland, and it might be a little different here, but in 10 to 12 years, a lot of those would actually fail. The roof shingles typically today are going to last, if you have the least expensive roof shingle, at least 20 years. So the vent collar will fail before the roof is in need of replacement. But if you called a roofer out and he needed some work, he might be telling you, oh, wow, this is an old roof. You got one leak already. You need a new roof. Well, you don't climb up on your roof. So, I think there's just a lot of information that we could put together ourselves. And, in my opinion, the call a roofer, you call a plumber, you call a heating contractor, there's immediately a conflict of interest because, you're looking for their expertise, but they need work.
Yeah,
And I think one thing that has happened, sorry about the dog, particularly with the school, is we have some aging systems there, and there have been disagreements about things like, do the boilers need to be replaced or not be replaced? So, it could be that at times that might need some outside consultation. I don't know. I mean, it'd be wonderful if it didn't, but some of this stuff gets pretty, there's disagreements amongst the kind of vendors that we've dealt with about things at the elementary school. So if there was a way of kind of stepping back before you're having vendors telling you two different things about what to do, that would be great.
We, if I can speak now, we did start looking at all the buildings and we started making lists. We didn't get to the DPW or the fire department. And we did look at the school, all the small buildings except for the dam house in the previous building committee. So we have a list started, but because this is a new committee and new people and new eyes and new thoughts, to take that list and just do another site visits to all those buildings again and start fresh, because we have that many more eyes now.
And I think, Frank, using some measures that are sort of typical for the industry. So it's not just a random, but you're looking, you have a kind of chart of all the major components, so you're not missing anything when you're going through it. Anything else? Because I'm going to be signing off in just a couple of minutes to go to another meeting.
I had an administrative question since I just joined the committee. I haven't turned in some of the paperwork back to town hall for the conflict of interest and open meeting law. Does that affect how I participate today, or should I just
Did you
participate?
get sworn in, Anna? I think
I
you
did.
Okay, then you're eligible to vote.
Okay.
I think there's a window of 10 or 30 days to get the paperwork back in.
Yeah, and I'm in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So anything else that you might need me for? Okay, great. I'm gonna sign off. Thank you again all for volunteering for the committee. I think this is going to be it's a great group of people and expecting big things. So good to have a good evening.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. I'm going to just kind of chair the meeting for a little bit. I put the election of committee chair and secretary at the end of the meeting, which is kind of unusual, but I was feeling that it might give you all more of a little more of a chance to think about taking on those roles as we talk a little bit more about how we want to proceed and what some of the more immediate and long-term tasks are going to be. If anybody would prefer to take those votes now instead of waiting, please let me know. Are you all okay with that?
Either way.
Okay. So on the agenda, I was going to follow Rita by giving a bit of an overview of some open issues. And then after that, briefly talk about a school update and a potential action that could be taken tonight by the committee. And finally, coming back around to the topic of a town building inventory, which is my language for the comprehensive, Rita's, the comprehensive assessment of all town buildings.
For capital planning, yeah.
Yeah. So let's, an overview of open issues. We have at the school, currently this summer in late August, we did a building envelope study. I mean, we had a specialist come in and walk through the building, and he's preparing a detailed report on the condition and function of that building. He was followed up by an air quality specialist from Department of Public Health. And some of those issues are overlapping. And we expect to have a report back from them within the next month, maybe in a week or so. But the importance of those two studies is how they'll help us understand the condition of the school because of the extended duration, the roof has been in disrepair. So those report, Jeff?
Can you go back to the first person that you talked about, the first study, the building envelope? What are they doing?
They walked through the building inspecting wherever there are potential air leaks within the building. The Green Communities folks have this company. It's an arm of National Grid. It's some of National Grid consultants. And the Green Communities folks, we are a green community and we're eligible to apply for grants up to $200,000. The first thing that was identified at the school is we haven't moved over to LED lighting at the school, which could be a very significant savings if we can get that done. And we potentially could get $100,000 towards doing that, to do that work through this Green Communities grant. But you can only spend 50% of the grant on lighting. A lot of communities have already done their lighting issues. We've done one round of lighting, but we haven't done the LED round. And because we need to have, so we brought in the building envelope specialist to really walk through the building and find, and figure out where we are now with all the insulation that's been put in. What is the condition of the original construction insulation? We found a lot of sagging plastic throughout the building, in the ceiling, a lot of areas where airflow was apparent where it shouldn't be. And then we'll get a full report from the building envelope person to help suggest solutions. They'll give a list of solutions that they would recommend. And then we potentially, after review, could get grant, we could apply for the grant funding to do the work.
And when does that report due?
The Green Communities grant is early October, so it's coming right up.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Other open issues are small, never solved problems. I'm most familiar with the ones in Town Hall. The town clerk's window has not functioned properly for at least 8 years. And it's a real concern because it's gigantic. It's like 48 inches across by, a big 48-inch square. And it's almost impossible to lift. It was scheduled for replacement about 4 years ago. And the efforts to move ahead on that never fully were resolved. Then we've got issues we've been fighting a lot of moisture in the basement of Town Hall. I think we might be in better shape with that now, but it's always a concern. At different times, people come in the basement of the building and have to leave because of the smell. But I think we've come a long way on that, but it's an ongoing issue. Painting is way behind at the elementary school, and whether or not the logic that has been used by the building committee to date is that we really need to take care of the roof before we do any painting. We are trying to move ahead on the roof, but I don't know if there really is a reason to hold off on the painting. Stephen?
Is that interior or exterior painting?
Exterior. The interior painting is in very good condition at this point.
Yeah, the interior of the school is, the custodian, Matt, has been on that, and he had, until he retired, maybe less than a year ago, he had Andy, a super carpenter, working with him. And so the interior of the school is really in good shape. It's the exterior that really needs to be painted, and there's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of facial boards that need to be replaced. And yeah, as Becky said, that the previous buildings committee decided that we shouldn't bother to do anything until after the roof, but that is so wrong because it looks so bad.
And
Excuse me, one other question.
sure.
This window, the town clerk's window, how old of a window is it? Roughly.
I think it was replaced in 2000. I believe it's an Anderson window.
I think the springs or the mechanisms are going on it.
Yes.
When everyone got their paperwork, didn't Grace make you try to lift it? She did with me, so.
Me too. It looked like you can, it's that type that you compress the jam liner to
Right,
tilt the window
yeah.
out, and you can see it's all kind of deformed low down. A lot of, I don't know about that particular line, but a lot of them you have to lift up like 6 or 8 inches before you tilt. And if you tilt them too low, it binds up and it kind of gets off its little clutch or whatever you want to call that thing in the jam liner. That was my guess from the evidence.
Yeah. I didn't know about the tilt, but maybe that, is it just a slight tilt?
I am too short to reach above that bottom sash. I'm 5 foot tall, but it just, from the way I could reach it, it felt like that kind where you push in the jam liner in order to tilt out the sash.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think the liners are broken. I know there were strings in there prior and they're broken. They're gone.
if it's
And
that
then-
old, it's probably just best to buy a new replacement insert and not try to repair something like that.
I think people agreed to that. It's just what type of window to buy. And it needs to get resolved,
Yep.
hopefully soon.
She has our attention.
Yes,
Yeah.
Grace has been very patient, but
Yeah.
the last town clerk created a number of workarounds. Susie Mosier's husband, Dave, built an inset 8 or 10-inch screen that there was a way to fit in there, and that Grace has been using that. Otherwise, there would have been no air or too much air in that office. So, yeah, it'll be wonderful to get that worked on. And maybe as we figure out how to tackle projects, we can start knocking them down. Steve, do you think of any other, the other issues at the school? Gutters have been an issue at the school, I think, since construction. I don't think they were fully installed. Originally, there was a gutter line in the budget created at some time, but it's still there. It's like $15,000, but no work was ever done. And I think Frank will remember when we walked around the buildings, a number of the gutters appeared to be full of leaves and other things, or the downspouts.
Are they cleaned?
I don't think so. I'm
No,
not
he's
sure.
waving his hand. You're
Ask
on mute.
Steve.
Okay, so so the gutters were never completely installed. And our larger problem is that our custodian doesn't like ladders, doesn't use ladders, and he will tell you he will never go up there and clean the gutters.
Well, then he needs to find someone who will. Yeah, we do have an assistant custodian, so hopefully we can get on that. And I did see Matt on the ladder. I don't think he was comfortable, but I did see him on a ladder this summer. So that, yeah, the school gutters are a big issue. At the highway department, and Steve might be able to add to this too, the sand shed, which is the largest shed running perpendicular to the main building with a highway sign on it, is the roof on that building is a rusted out metal roof. And Steve, is it leaking?
Yeah, it leaks and it's rusty, but we don't, other than the loader, the backhoe, and the 1 ton and salt, we don't really keep much out there. But yes, it needs to be replaced.
And the concern about the salt, and I think it's the magic salt that gets put in that shed, which is, you know, a different type of salt that's supposed to melt the roads at a lower temperature and be less of an environmental issue. If that's getting wet and leaching into the soil, that's a problem. We already are still, you know, we have salt contamination to the property behind the highway department, which required the town to give them another water source. So we had to run a water line from behind the fire station across the street to the highway department, which also needed clean water because of salt. And then another 500 feet back to the residents. So one of the big issues for the building committee is to try to address issues where the salt is contained to make sure that it's secured and not leaching into the ground if possible. The fire department at this point is in pretty good shape. We've done a number of projects at the fire department. We put in a new heating system. They used to have a furnace, a gigantic old furnace that was about at 70% efficiency, that there was only one thermostat for all the interior office areas and all the bays, which meant a gross waste of fuel and energy. That's been fixed. They have an instantaneous water heater in there now for the showers there's 2 full bathrooms there for people to take showers after they've been on calls, or if like during an emergency, they are spending multiple hours, you know, extended hours every day at the fire station. Town hall, we have Grace's issue. We have space issues in town hall that continue to put the police department in a pickle. They had the opportunity for grant funding of a full new fingerprinting station, but they did not have the wall space or the area enough in the small upstairs office. And so there's a number of space issues about storage in town hall, the storage of records, the storage of just regular departments and all their equipment. There was a report written on the storage needs by the town clerk who left. Susie Mosier put together a committee, and there's a report on the storage needs that would be another document this committee should become familiar with, because we don't have adequate storage. Downstairs in town hall, we have a commercial dehumidifier now in the back area, in the secured area. And then we have another breathing air filtration machine that was put in during COVID. And all those systems really need to be looked at and how they interact together. We put mini splits in the police department and into the finance office and the upstairs. So those spaces have air conditioning. Town clerk's office has no air conditioning, And if to set up a fan, we have to set it up in the hallway, and it's, so we need to find a solution for fresh air and cooled air for the town clerk as well. So those are just some of the first things that come to mind. Jeff?
There was a project that took place, I thought, this summer to replace the control systems at the pool.
Yes.
That completed?
It is not yet complete. The valves that they thought they were getting in August. I was told they were arriving, I think this week, and that they hope to get them in next week. So that still is not completed. And there were delays also for in the main control room. There were some pieces of equipment that the main contractor CTC was waiting on to complete their end of the work. That project has another issue that will come before you once I get the estimate. It was reported that the closed water system, it's a boiler system, and the liquid in it is highly acid. It has glycol in it, and it's not supposed to. And I was told that we need to have it drained, and the glycol and the liquid that's in it needs to be taken away in a big tanker. The original quote that our engineer was given for the job, he felt was extremely excessive. I think for about $15,000 just to rebalance the water in the boiler system. So he was working to get a lower quote from the subcontractor, from the contractor and subcontractor on that issue. And then he had some other concerns that he was going to write up, and I haven't gotten yet because he hasn't received quotes from the subcontractor, better quotes. So that's another open issue, the HVAC system at the school. It was a $230,000 project. We've had pneumatic controls for a long time in the school, and the valves have been breaking, and we were unable to replace the pneumatic valves. I think it was we've spent a ton of money just helping the system limp along. And we really, I think we'll see a big difference this year with the new digital valves in full function. Stopping by the school at different times, I went to visit the one office that's near the library, and they couldn't turn the heat off. In another office, they couldn't, another classroom, they couldn't turn the heat on. And so there was this constant frustration. The janitor had heard enough from everybody by the end of last year. So we're hoping that the HVAC project will really improve the condition moving forward at the school. That leads to the boilers at the school. When we applied for the new roof grant from the state, the MSBA, it was decided to also ask about the boilers, because it's typically not just the boiler, but they do anything attached to the boilers. If the boilers are in good shape, then it would help address the pumps and all the other equipment within the boiler room. And it could have also, if we still needed a new water heater, we had to replace the water heater on an emergency basis 3 or 4 years ago. But if that, it would have replaced that, we could have gotten a new one through the grant system. So at this point, we are well aware that MSBA has declined to entertain a grant for the roof because it is currently 29 years old, and they are arguing also that it's only 28. And they are only taking projects that are 30 years old this year. So the roof, it will not be done through grant money, which means that we need to be, we're working on it using town funds. One thing that the select board did do on the allocation of ARPA money is they have voted to put $300,000 of our $500,000 of ARPA money towards the new roof. We've already set aside $60,000 for engineering and design for the new roof. And that segues me right into the school roof update. We need to begin the process of the engineering on the school roof. Bob Groves had made a lot of phone calls and gotten some information. There was one of the contractors that are designers and engineers he contacted was Gale Associates. In reviewing the different companies, I reached out to Jeff, who with his work at UMass has a wide-ranging knowledge of just about every designer and engineer in the state. Am I exaggerating, Jeff?
Yeah, you're exaggerating a little bit. Mhm.
Okay, I'll try not to. But anyway, Jeff is familiar with Gale and Associates. They are a firm that has put together, they put together an estimate of work. But in their letter to Bob, they recommended that the town start with a full evaluation and not commit to the whole project in the first step, so that any company bidding on the totality of the work needed would have a better, with a full evaluation from them, we would know more fully what the needs of the roof system is. I believe Gale Associates works a lot with leaking roofs and where water flows and building envelope issues. So I think in looking over all the different quotes, this one stood out. And when I talked to Jeff about it, he found that this company, he expressed that they're extremely reputable and do good work. Jeff, do you want to speak about them at all?
I've done a lot of projects at UMass with Gale, but I think the thing is Gale isn't just gonna be looking at the roof thing. There's other issues with that roof that deal with moisture, and I think it's moisture from within inside the building. And I'm concerned that the roof sheathing may be at risk in that building. So we need somebody to investigate not just the roof material, but the whole system. And also what's going on between the conditioned spaces and the unconditioned spaces at that building. I have a sneaking suspicion we're heating the attic, and heat is just going up and away from the building. So I think we need an expert or a firm that does good envelope and systems analysis to take a look at this. But I am, Becky, a little wondering if we should hold off until we see this report that you said it's coming in October.
Well, it should be in within, it could be, it could be by the end of this week. I haven't gotten confirmation of when the report will be done. So I could push and find, so you think it would be best for us to review the report and then send it to them?
Well, I've always found the more information you can provide the consultants, the better. Since I don't really understand what this envelope consultant that we already have looking at the school is doing, I guess I'd like to see what they're doing, what they're coming up with,
Okay.
which would probably help Gail. So maybe we should just wait for the next meeting to decide whether I'm hoping by then we would have that report.
Yep. That makes sense. Stephen?
I have very little understanding of the school in terms of the roof. Is it a pitched roof, a low slope roof? Or is it a combination? And is there an attic space that someone can access?
There is an attic space, but what you find when you go into the attic space is they did not remove the old roof. They built over it. So there's components of the old roof within it. And is it a sloped roof? I mean, there's a.
Does it
How
have
does-
asphalt shingles on it, or is
There
it?
are asphalt shingles on the roof that have, and the nails of the asphalt shingles have been popping off.
In fact, the nails are rusting. It would appear the nails are rusting from inside, which makes me question moisture.
Yeah,
So, and it's about a 3 or 4 12 pitch.
oh, so for asphalt shingles, that's pretty low.
Yeah, it's not a real, for around here, it's not a real strong pitch.
Yeah. So at some point, did they change when you said, Becky, that they put a new roof over the old roof? Are you saying that there's like additional roof structure? On
Yes,
top of an original roof structure?
yes,
Um,
only for part of the school. That's why it is really funky. And we need to go look at it.
Yeah, and there's some areas where the building envelope person found where there was sheetrock above, where there was a sealed, a complete seal. There weren't air wasn't traveling through from the attic. He was happy with that, but that area was pretty much just in the hallways. And in all the classrooms, in the office, and almost everywhere else, you had this flapping plastic stuff going on, which, and in one area, yeah. So there were some signs I saw. I think people have reported signs of moisture. I don't have any pictures of it, but that is a concern, which reinforces what Jeff's concerns are. But I think getting both of those reports, that and the air quality one, that really spoke to the fact that number one, he thought the building was built in the wrong location. It should have been moved about 100 feet to the west. The building is tree lined, and the roof does not dry. From what he said, when the gym roof, before it was replaced, had trees growing out of it. And that was an upside down, you had the
It was
insulation.
an Irma roof.
Yeah, an Irma roof, which they don't do a lot of in this area. I think for good reason. We had leaking issues on the gym roof since day one. So that piece, so you all know, that piece was replaced. Well, the construction started on the gym roof last summer. They went with internal drainage within the building to bring the water off the roof, and then just having the scuppers take the overflow of drainage. Prior to that, all the water was backing up and flooding over the sides, and the scuppers weren't constructed properly. They weren't built properly, so the water was pouring straight down through the scuppers into the cinder block walls, and that accounted for a lot of leaking, and the gym floor was in jeopardy. There's about a 10 by 10 foot area where the gym floor bounces up and down at this point. But we were able to stabilize that, and this year has been immeasurably better. We haven't had any issues with the gym. But the rest of the school roof still needs attention. Great attention. So Jeff, that's a good thought. Is anybody interested in looking over the proposal from Gale Associates to do the evaluation? Or
I
should I
would.
send that? Okay, so,
Been a while since, like a year since we looked at that, so let's see it again.
okay, is this? Let me just make sure. I'll share the screen 1 second.
Or can you send it to all of us?
Yeah, do you want me just
Yeah.
to send it or
Send it
just?
to us. Yeah,
And then we just look at it at our own time, yeah.
exactly.
Okay, that's what I was asking. If you wanted to look at it right now, I can share my screen, it's right here. But I'll send that out to everyone. It's a full review. It has not, the most detailed section is the evaluation. I think that's because without that being done, they really can't determine the rest of the design or what they're gonna do. So I think starting with the evaluation is the way to go. And because we are allowed in procurement to target, to work with this person without going out to bid ahead of time, which could also save time because that's the other consideration. Okay, so the next issue is the town building inventory. And it sounds like everyone has it seems like Rita gave the overview on that and what the hopes are. I just wanted to further say that 10 years ago, the select board requested this project be done by the building committee. There was an attempt in the first year. We had a member of the building committee who worked at an architectural firm who did a lot of work on, he approached it, building by building and started breaking out components. And it was a very thoughtful approach. I know determining, it'll take the committee working together to outline how you want to address this. But it was started once, but then it stopped. We do have the notes from that. If they might be of value, I can share them with you to see if there's any value in what we did then. These buildings have not changed dramatically in 10 years. But it might just help frame what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So I can share that work with you. But that's very important to the select board that we try to get to a point where we're not just knee-jerk reaction, where we can plan ahead for things and not be as we are now with the school roof, like 5 years after it should have happened and we're still trying to get it done. And we also have a capital plan in town and getting, something realistic into the capital plan about our buildings and all the systems they need is really important. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute and ask you guys to think, share your thoughts about the building inventory and what you think the best approach might be, or if that should just be an item to put on the next agenda. And then you guys, this is a lot I'm throwing at you at one time. How do you all feel?
I believe the building inventory, nice if all of us could get together at some time and go see each building.
Yes. Okay.
Because
And I'd like to see that the previous, the 10-year ago assessment, see how it was how it was approached. And it might be a good system to still use, but look at that rather than talk about it now. And then do it at the next meetings.
Sounds good.
I also think it would be good to, first see the previous work that was done. But from my perspective, identifying components that we want to look at, for instance, on the exterior, say roofing, guttering, chimneys, siding, trim, grading, surfaces, and then, after we identify all those, we might develop a way to identify conditions like it's okay now, or, we need to plan for repair or replacement within maybe this much time. And, just deciding how much detail to have about each item. But with any of those items, there certainly could be some simple maintenance issues that if they were dealt with would increase the longevity and be well worth, say, a more immediate expenditure.
Is there anybody on our committee, I'm asking the committee members that are extremely knowledgeable about MEP systems,
About what kind?
mechanical, electrical, and plumbing?
Well, as
I
a
know
home
an-
inspector,
Huh?
as a home
Especially
inspector,
for
I
bigger
looked at
buildings.
all those, and I would say I have a certain amount of experience with all of those. I don't know.
For buildings the size we have in town?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, they're not huge buildings. I mean,
and I know enough to be dangerous, so that's about,
and I will certainly be the first to say, this is beyond my, level of knowledge, and we need to pursue, getting someone with more knowledge, but.
okay.
I have a question. If we're looking at a lot of different buildings in town, but also developing the framework for how we're assessing, do we want to pick a single building to figure out what that framework and assessment method or items that we're looking at, what those are going to be, and see if that's working for us and working for the select board? Is there a building that's most urgent that we should start with, or is it more of a systems, like we should look at all of the roofs first on all of the buildings? Is there any kind of decision we can make on that while we're all together?
I think that's a good idea, and I kind of think the school should be our test.
My kid's there, so I'd go for that.
You're okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so start with the school and identifying components, because it's very likely there'll be more components at the school than anywhere else.
I agree.
And then what's so there's attic access. I'm willing to climb a ladder. Maybe someone wants to join me up there. Can we get into the attic and crawl around, or
Yes, we
clean the
can.
gutters while we're there and just check that off the list?
Do what?
Should we clean the gutters while we're there and just check that off the list?
There's no access to the gutters from the attic.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah.
So,
That's good. That would
yes,
be a different
well,
problem.
I might have to take that back. The last time I was up there, one of the consultants was really concerned about daylight coming in from the east that he didn't think should be happening. There were too many scary things in that walkthrough. But yes, we can get up into the attic. There's access from one of the mechanical rooms in the school that's on the east side. You really need flashlights up there. There's no lighting. So you have to make sure I was up there with the insulation person, and my phone died, and getting back down was difficult. So, but we could add that to the tour, of getting up in there.
I was assuming we want to see it to then compare to the assessment, but it may be if other folks on the committee have more knowledge of it, if we don't all need to go. Have other people been up there, or do people feel comfortable with what they've read and have some knowledge of it?
I haven't been up there prior. I've been just the outside tour, and then the kitchen tour, the gym tour, and I've seen all the building inside, but not in the attic.
Okay.
So
I
I
have
have not been in the attic.
Okay.
I've not been in the building. I've only been up there to get my trash bag allotment.
That doesn't,
I'm very interested, just based on some of the things I've heard about getting into this attic. And
Yeah.
I've crawled around in a lot of attics, so I've got the equipment and flashlights.
Fabulous. Yeah, I find those small 6-inch ones are really good for up there with something to hold on to. Okay, so we can start planning a tour and we're going to start with school. As far as developing the components for inventory and that's a good start. I guess we need to talk about our next meeting. When to schedule the next meeting. Wednesdays seem to work for everyone.
Mhm.
Great. And if the goal is to try to accomplish this huge mountain of work meeting once a month. But if you're up for a meeting, starting off, since there's a mountain of work meeting more frequently, and I'm going to ask that of, I know both Steve and Jeff have another, other new commitments with the library. Jeff, is your anticipation that we would meet once a month, or were you eager to meet more often?
Let's try if the group is okay with it every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks? Okay,
And if we find we don't have enough to talk about, then we'll go to once a month.
okay.
I'm
How,
good with that.
Hmm?
I'm
is
good with
everyone
that.
good with that? Anna?
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
good with that. At this time at 5:30.
Yes,
Yeah, that'll
That-
work.
that works.
Mhm.
Okay, that works for everybody, every 2 weeks. Great.
How about our school attic visit?
Do we want to schedule touring and visits during our meetings? During the meetings?
No, because everything outside, it's going to be, getting dark. We'd want to be outside, I think, or finishing up outside prior to 5 o'clock and, right now.
When is school? We really shouldn't be in there while school is in session.
I agree.
I believe they're done by 3:15.
Yeah,
But,
the
when-
after. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, tell Anna, you know better than I on this one.
The after school, like the aftercare group goes through 4:30,
Right.
but it does dwindle because I think people pick up. So the cutoff is 4:30. So maybe the building's open at 4:30 if we want to meet right then or a little bit early. I don't know who would give permission, but it seems like it wouldn't be a big deal to overlap with them wrapping that program up.
Yeah, and
There's somebody there on the weekends.
I do have access. I have keys to the school. So we could do a weekend tour if that worked better for people.
I'm going to be totally hit or miss on that.
Okay,
And I can go either way.
okay,
I'm gonna be hit or miss, commitments already, through October on weekends, middle of October right now,
okay.
where I'm away. Wednesdays is a wonderful day. I'm open on all Wednesdays going forward for some reason. There's nothing on my calendar.
Well, we could certainly be outside the school earlier than when I assume it's fully, say, closed up. So we could do a certain amount of outside evaluation prior to going in. We could go in and, if we were in there, at this time, it doesn't matter, but it's really the outside that we need the daylight for.
And Wednesdays is a special day at the school because they close early. The school ends at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. The after program still goes to 4:30, right? But I think the after school program is smaller and more isolated, where I'll talk with the principal, but I think we could, like, if we needed to start at 4 o'clock or 3:30, I'm sure she'd be fine with us doing that. And especially for the tour of the attic, because the attic is, you know, out of the area the kids would be in. Just so long as we don't fall through the ceiling. Which is something that did happen at the town hall, so that's why it is within the realm of possibility. But hopefully not with 2 roofs at the school.
So do we want to plan for our next meeting then to be at the school? Like in 2 weeks? And that gives everybody, gives you time to get this organized with the principal.
Yep, that sounds
And-
good. That would be the
Is
5th of
that, Becky, when we started all this, you had mentioned that site tours are one thing, and if we have a town meeting, it has open public laws. We have to invite the public to it.
Right. So
So-
site visits, we don't have to, like right now, we are being recorded. Anyone could have come to this meeting. Because it's posted in public, site visits don't have that, bar, that requirement, just like Frank outlined. So we can do site visits more freely. You don't take votes or make decisions. You're just collecting observations that will be brought back to a regular meeting for any full determination or votes.
We'd have to call that a site visit, not a meeting, because if we had a meeting, it has to go to the public and the public's all invited.
Right.
Mhm.
So we'll be clear that the tours are site visits. And they don't have to get posted.
Okay, so 2 weeks is the 5th. I'm gonna be out of town that week. That's probably my only conflict the whole fall.
Oh, my goodness. So that would speak to doing it on potentially the following, the 5th, the 19th. I'm just thinking if we were,
What about the 12th? Be 3 weeks.
That's good for me.
For me,
Me too.
next
Steve?
week, good, so.
Steve is still there, right?
Yes, I'm here. Oh,
Steve's, there you
He
are.
did a thumbs up, yep.
Okay, great. I couldn't see him. Okay, so we'll plan the tour for the 12th. I
Yeah,
will,
What time? Approximately what time?
I'm gonna go to Anna on that one.
I'm not
First.
a working stiff, so I've got flexibility. You guys don't.
I mean, the program goes till 4:30, but I guess I don't see a problem with it overlapping if the folks at the school don't. So if earlier is better just for better lighting, shall we just pencil in 3:30 or 4 o'clock and then we'll adjust it if that doesn't work for the school?
Okay,
That works.
here's a thought. You can walk around the outside of the school and climb on the roof when, nobody's there.
You can't climb the roof because you can't get on the roof.
well, we need a huge ladder to get on the roof, and I have to fess up, I've never made it all the way on the roof. I've gotten to the top of the ladder many times.
What,
From the,
more than a
from the top.
28-foot extension?
That should be fine, yeah.
I have a 28-foot extension.
Is everybody game for going up on the roof?
I've been there before, so.
Yeah, Jeff, I've seen on the roof.
As
Steve,
long as it doesn't snow.
okay, so Stephen, could you bring the ladder to?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I'd
excellent.
like some kind of written release.
I have volunteer releases that I'll bring for everybody. Thank you. If everyone's
a
willing
lot.
to sign.
And so we know we want to look at the roof, but is there already areas of concern at the school we want to specifically inspect, or are we just walking around gathering observations? Or does Stephen have an old building inspector template we can fill out while we're there so we don't miss anything?
Or should we really put the components spreadsheet or identify all those components ahead of the inspection or ahead of the tour? Are we jumping the gun? Should we try to do a list? Should
Maybe
we?
in but Stephen, you're not even available in 2 weeks, right?
Right, yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
be traveling with friends, so I
Okay.
really can't take time, won't want to take time from that. I mean, what about, I would be willing to meet next Wednesday to talk about component list. I don't know. if
How do
people-
people feel about that?
I have to go up next to Vermont next week to paint my kids' rooms at his apartment, so I'm gonna be away. I'm kind of thinking maybe we need our first meeting, which may be in 3 weeks, is we get together the component list.
Yeah.
So we all do a little bit of research before then to figure out what should be on the component list. And then,
Okay,
then
and
we'll
I-
schedule the trip. A walkabout.
Okay, so we'll hold off on the site visit and work on the component list and just have a regular meeting at 5:30 on the 12th of October. And also, hopefully those reports will have come in that I will send out to you all, so we could also discuss the findings there. And talk about hiring, potentially hiring Gale Associates to do the evaluation.
Do we want to meet every other week starting on the 12th then, or do we want to go back to this week being one of them?
Let's do every other week after 3 weeks.
For the 12th, okay. Okay, I just want to block it out now so I don't lose it in the future.
Mhm.
Sounds good. Okay, and I'll get out the old work that was done back in, like 10 years ago. And whatever reports come in about the school. And you all will think through appropriate components that, a list that you feel, items that you feel should be on the list. And then we can start pulling that all together for the meeting on the 12th. And then from there on, we do every other week,
Mhm.
every 2 weeks, okay?
Okay.
And that brings us, did anyone have anything else on that topic? Okay, that brings us to election of committee chair and secretary. And I know in Shutesbury, it's often a process of begging for a volunteer. So
Okay.
do I have any volunteers for either of those positions?
I will do the secretary because I know how to do it now.
Oh, Frank, I was
I
hoping
think
you'd jump up.
Yeah, Bob asked help last time because he was doing both at the same time. And I've got a routine where I love Zoom and I watch the whole thing again and rewrite it. So I'm left-handed and it works for me, so.
I can't believe we watch all of these.
Yep, they're more entertaining than you would imagine. That's wonderful. So anybody else want to be secretary? Hearing none. All right, so all those in favor of Frank McGinn.
Wait. You're gonna do a motion first and in a roll call? Is that how we do it?
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
And I shouldn't be doing it. See, I've been out of the loop for so long. So do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that Frank do the
Second.
secretary work. I can't believe he did it. He volunteered, but more power to him.
Second,
Okay.
Okay, now, any discussion? Just great appreciation.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Oh, and because we're on Zoom, you need to go around the room. I'm sorry, alphabetically. Let's try to do it alphabetically. I don't know if you remember each other's last names. Why don't we just go starting with Steve Sullivan? And you have to, it's a roll call vote, and because we're on Zoom, you have to say like Sullivan, aye, or nay.
Sullivan, I.
Okay.
Okay, aye.
Great,
Elmas, I.
great,
Bush, aye.
beautiful,
Again, aye.
excellent. That's everyone.
Unanimous, yes.
Okay, all right. A little bit, another key role, the chair of the committee would be in charge of putting together the agendas. I'll help in getting them posted. And also chairing the meetings, which I don't know if anyone is comfortable in that role. I'm sure everyone is competent to do this. All right. We're gonna need a little arm twisting.
Stephen, she's setting you up. Go ahead.
No, nobody's jumping in, right? Okay. Anybody have short and long straws? Jeff, I think you have a short straw.
Well, I get off that other committee. I can't chair this one too.
That's true. Jeff is currently the chair of the Board of Assessors, which is currently a big handful. All right, so we have 3 other people. Stephen? You're right, spoke to 2 people at once. Yeah. And I know Steve Sullivan has a huge commitment with, he's also the regional school representative. Anna, any interest?
Nope, I got too much going on.
I
Two
got it.
kids, business.
Stephen Dalmas, any interest?
Well, I don't have interest. But, it'll be I'll be the rookie. So I'll need to check in with the coach a lot about doing this, but I'll give it a shot.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so now we need a motion.
I motion that Stephen Dalmas is chair of the Billings Committee.
I second.
All those in favor?
Now, don't we have to go through the same thing again?
Yes.
Sullivan, I.
Steve, are, oh,
Again,
we didn't have a flat no from Steve yet. Are you okay with not being on the chair, Steve Sullivan? Okay,
Okay,
all right. I just needed to be sure. I had a minute of, okay. So we have two ayes, the rest,
McGinn, aye.
Quackenbush, aye.
You
all
can vote.
right.
So, Steve, you can vote for yourself.
I vote for myself?
Yeah.
Dalmas, I. So I just have to let you know, you now have 2 left-handers. running the show.
Wow, that's unusual.
One more and we make a right.
Yep.
That's great. The left-handed building committee.
Yes.
Perfect.
How
Okay,
how many individuals do we need to be a quorum since we have 5 members?
3.
And under the rules, we can't talk to each other or
Oh.
email each other because it would then become a meeting. How's
I
it?
think-
Explain that one again.
Okay, so when you have 3 members, like on the assessors board and the select board, you really can't talk to anybody because 2 is a quorum. You have more leeway for conversation with a 5-member board to talk to another person. The important thing is when you are talking, really try to avoid any, like if, say, a member of the committee decided they really think that we need a new police department, and you start talking to another person one day and a different person another day, that becomes a serial situation. Like if you're pushing a single issue, you really want to kind of avoid that. Any new initiatives that you want the committee to take on, it's best to bring those up at a full committee meeting. But you can talk to at least one other committee member. You just don't want to talk to, Jeff, if you talk to Steve Sullivan one day and then Frank another day and then Anna, then you will have talked to a quorum about the issue. So you don't want to do that. But you can talk to at least one other person without it being a problem. And the other thing about open meeting law, if you have a strong opinion about something, you do not want to ever email that opinion out to the whole board in a way to influence them on a decision before the board. That's the essence of the open meeting law. As far as emails get so many people in trouble that, it's normal for people to share their opinions on issues, but you want to be really careful in email. And since I know both Jeff and Steve Sullivan and Frank have been on boards in town before, but Anna and Steve Dalmas, I don't think you have, right? But I know, Anna, Tim was on, your husband was on the Water Resources Committee, so you're familiar with that. And Steve is now on the Library and Building Committee, so that the town structure is, if you ever have any questions about open meeting law, town clerk is an excellent resource. I can help you on things as well if she's not available, but feel free to ask. The last thing we have to entertain, and this is because the committee is brand new and newly formed, with 5 members, you want to make sure that terms are staggered, and so that, we don't have everybody with 3-year terms, so you all leave at the same time. So typically you have 2 people with a 2-year term when you start the committee, and then after that, everybody will get 3-year terms, but 2 people can start with a 2-year term, and then the other 3, if they start with, or 2 others with a 3-year term, and then 1 person with a 1-year term. And then following that, you can all, if you're reappointed, it will all be for 3 years, but the initial terms will set the staggering into motion. So I'd be looking for volunteers for a 1-year term, 2 volunteers for a 2-year term, and 2 volunteers for a 3-year term.
So can you explain if say I volunteer for the 1-year term, after 1 year, then do I get reappointed, or am I just gone?
You're not just gone. There'll be a letter to the chair of the committee that comes from the admin secretary in May, inquiring the status of the volunteers and if they're willing to continue. And so recommendations are made back to the select board. So if you're willing, if the 1-year person is willing to continue, then they're appointed to a 3-year term after that. And the same with a 2-year term. So in the end, it's just a way to make sure everyone doesn't leave at the same time.
I volunteer for a 2-year term.
Excellent.
Me too.
Thank you.
I'll do one.
Okay. All right,
And we-
Frank and Steve, you don't have any options. You each get the 3-year term.
As you lose.
Steve and Frank. Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Okay.
I know there was a lot of tedious stuff this meeting, but I think it'll get much more interesting very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Oh, so we've scheduled the next meeting for October 12th.
Yep.
And I'll let Stephen Dalmas adjourn the meeting as the new chair. When
All right, so how do I adjourn the meeting?
uh,
Do I
You
ask
can-
for a motion?
yes. Well, you can, I don't think you need a motion to adjourn, right? Yes, you do. Yes.
Okay, Doug. Okay,
Steve?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'm making a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
It's seconded.
All in
Yeah.
favor?
Now we have to do that thing again.
Do we have to go alphabetically again?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think,
Cook
Anna-
eye. I think it might be me. Cook eye.
and then Stephen.
Aye.
McGinn, aye.
Quackenbush, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Enjoy.
Well, thank you all so very, very much. And I'm really excited about getting some really good work done. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay.
Uh,
Thank you all.
Bye.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.